Welcome back to Coaches Exploring the Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. And today we've got our full complement of coaches, so this should be a good one. And we're reviewing Chapter 9, Removing Your Inner Thorn. And the first thing I highlighted was about halfway through the first paragraph. It said, we normally attempt to solve our inner disturbances by protecting ourselves. Real transformation begins when you embrace your problems as agents for growth. I thought that was kind of a cool spin on, a way of reframing a problem in terms of an agent for growth. And I really like that.
It's a good one, and what occurs to me is I don't generally see that straight away, because when I notice it, I'm like, sorry. Initially, I'm just in it. It's like, this is normal, and then halfway through, it's like I notice it, and then it kicks in. Oh, this is another opportunity, or there's something to be seen here, but not straight away. Usually I'm like, oh yeah, it's not me. It's outside. It's whatnot, etc. But then at some point, the awareness kicks in, and then it's yeah.
I don't know why I'm taking it back to this video I saw, like Joe Rogan clip or something, and it's some ex-Navy SEAL guy, and he's like, the person's like, oh, we didn't get the fund. He's like, good, or I didn't get the promotion. Good, like everything that somebody thinks is a problem, he's just like, good. That's another opportunity to grow. My book didn't sell. Good. Like, what are you going to learn from it?
Yeah.
Or I don't have any clients. Good. What do you learn? So that's what this line we think of.
It reminds me of that. Is it that Jamie Smart story about the horse that ran away from the farmer?
Oh yeah, I love that story.
I call that the power of maybe. Whenever I
maybe, yeah.
That's an Alan Watts Chinese proverb.
Oh, okay.
Maybe so, maybe not.
The part that's, I think, really interesting is he says the spiritual journey is one of constant transformation. We don't stand still.
No.
If we do, we're working very hard to stay still. And, the part that always gets me as I read this book is he talks about when you free yourself, there's boundless energy. We stop working so hard to keep ourselves stuck.
It occurs to me the reason we work so hard to stay stuck is because it's like we found this platform to stop disturbing the metaphoric thorn. We go through life going, oh, if I have this set up this way, or if I'm this like that, it's like, oh yeah, it's not going to touch those sore spots. So, and then we're resistant to change those things we've created to.
Well, it makes so much sense because it's, we're doing all of that effort to not disturb the thorn, right? And I love his metaphor here where he talks about, he thins out the branches of the forest, and he builds some kind of apparatus, and then he has to widen his doors so the apparatus can get through it. Like
goes on and on.
Yeah, it paints such a picture of, and it's like, on the one hand, you're reading this story, or I'm reading, I'm going like, oh, this is like, what a fool. Like, and then it's like, oh shoot, that's me.
Yeah.
I do that.
I had this vision of do you guys know what a Humvee is? That great big enormous
Yes,
vehicle?
I want one.
That is the vision I had when I was reading this. Like, we're going around in this Humvee and nothing touching us, and all that is that we're trying to protect from is this is this thorn inside.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
use that.
Humvee. No, you can't have one of those, Vanessa. They're gas guzzlers.
Well, I would
No.
never do it. I'm way too
An,
practical.
an electric Humvee.
They
An electric
inspire
Humvee.
me.
Yeah.
Well, I like that it's like it comes down to two choices, like either, figure out how to live with your thorn and not disturb it, or get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
And
Yeah.
and the choice to live with it, he says, that becomes the work of a lifetime. And for me, as you guys know, I've had this lifelong thorn of my picky food eating thing, and I couldn't help but think about that all the way through, especially when he's talking about how this becomes the work of a lifetime. Everything you do, every decision you make, basically you think you've got it sorted, but really it's running your life. And
Yes.
and I look back at my life around my food thing, I'm like, totally. Like, I mean, there's people I wouldn't become friends with. There's places I wouldn't go. There was jobs I wouldn't take or apply for. There's trips I wouldn't go on. I mean, I could go on for the whole hour if you want. But I saw very clearly reading through this, like how absolutely true that's been for me in that area of my life.
And
Scary. Go ahead.
yeah, I'm just going to say
Right.
how he shifts slightly the metaphor of the thorn, to make it sort of something more real, and applies the idea of loneliness as an example. And I sort of stopped on that, and I just thought, oh my goodness. But not so much in my case for the loneliness, but then I just started putting words in there, like insecurity and lack of confidence, and you could just put them all in and apply the same metaphor to every goddamn thing that we, in my case, spend a whole lifetime actually avoiding. So in the big machinery to keep it at bay, rather than taking it out. Yeah, sort of amazing. If anybody wants to have any avoidance techniques, come and talk to me. I'm expensive though.
These days.
Yeah.
The scariest part with all this is when we don't know that this thorn is there, where our behavior and the way we are being in life just feels normal and how it should be. It's the moment that we become aware, oh, there is this thing, and that is dictating the way how I am and going about life. That's when, it can begin to open up to, other ways of looking at it and seeing it and releasing it ultimately. But it's the scariest part is just not knowing it's even there. And the thing that stood out for me is like, it turns out that the life of protecting yourself from your problem becomes a perfect reflection of the problem itself.
In my world here, it's expected that you don't go in certain places, because you're going to upset somebody. And, what I see it now is the society has evolved around certain thorns that almost everybody has. And before this call, I was thinking, I want to talk about this to people. You have people that have different sexual orientations. You have people with labels, ADHD, dyslexia. You have people that don't want to talk about their past relationship for some reason. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And in the groups I hang out with, there's lots of that. What I realized as I was reviewing my notes for this session is I don't have to do anything about that. I can recognize it and just let it be, oh, that's what's happening with this person. Interesting. And hopefully they realize it.
Mm.
You know, I don't want to aggravate somebody's thorns, but neither do I have to take it on. If it, you know, take on not having to say something that I want to say. And if I say something like that and it upsets somebody, well, I can deal with it then.
Mm.
But I don't want to take it on and change who I really am because of it.
Mm.
Maybe I could be curious about it. I don't know.
Mm.
I'm excited for the next time it comes up, so I can see how, you know, if I can really recognize it and then maybe find a different way to handle it after I notice it.
So Vanessa, that's like so not only are we walking around with our own thorns and trying to deal with them, but then the notion that, well, we may have to even consider in the knowing that other people have them, what are they? How do we avoid those? That just makes, you know, that's like double Humvee.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't thought about it in a societal way.
And
but
I don't
yeah.
want that. I
Yeah.
don't want any of this in my life anymore.
Yeah.
Double Humvee. I
Double
like that
Humvee.
Humvee
That sounds like a
image.
cocktail, doesn't it? Double Humvee. I'll have a double Humvee, please.
One of the things I've been working on this year to, you know, greater or less than success, depending on the time of day, is I used to use the phrase pushing buttons, but it's basically touching my wife's thorns.
Mm.
You know, just to. It's kind of I kind of have always thought of it as a little bit of a game. Like I know where her thorns are, and if I want to get a little bit of attention or I don't know, whatever, it's just I just nudge that little thorn a little bit, and then go like, "What are you so mad about?" Well, it's like you know damn well. I'm like, yeah, because I touched your thorn on purpose. Sorry.
On purpose, sorry.
Yeah,
I heard that.
yeah. I did say I was working on it, so
Yeah.
but this chapter will definitely help.
For for me, it helps to understand what's going on.
Mm.
Because then I can step back and see the picture, and it's more like well, what I want to say is it's an interesting movie in front of me. But there's something about not stepping into the movie and just watching it happen that seems important to me.
Mm. He also talks about how compounding these things are. It says the minute you allow the core problem to stay, it expands into multiple problems.
Right.
And then, you know, now you have to fix. It's not just fixing that one thing; it's fixing everything, avoiding everything.
I was at a local convenience store with a friend, and so these days they have all the cigarettes covered up, and there's a screen letting you know the brand and the price. And I was looking at it, I'm going like, wow, $38, $48, $60. I'm like, just out of curiosity, I asked the attendant how much, like how many are in here in a case, and he's like, oh, then this one says 20, and this one says 40. Wow, that's a lot of money for one of these. And my friend was saying that the government has increased the tax on cigarettes so that to you know, persuade people not to buy them. But a lot of people are apparently moving into vaping now. Now that's becoming a problem. So it's like not looking at the root cause of why, you know, people are drawn to smoking in the first place. So you try to curb one thing, and it actually creates another set of problems. And then now you try to deal with the vaping issue. You know, it's just becomes like this cancer that just spreads one thing after another. It's almost like when there's a problem, it's like stopping and turning around and looking what's behind it, as opposed to how can I stop what's actually here. And oftentimes the root cause is so invisible to us.
But what he says is you don't have to know the root cause. You just have to know here's an issue, let it go.
Yeah.
I love that part.
Yeah. And how he says, well, to let go, just noticing that you noticed.
Yeah.
And that's just so simple. So simple.
My page 134, he says, do not doubt your ability to remove the root cause of the disturbance inside you. It really can go away. You can look deep within yourself to the core of your being and decide that you don't want the weakest part of you running your life. You want to be free of this. I know, for me in my life, I spent a considerable amount of time doubting my ability to do that. It's kind of, something very hopeful about his certainty that he communicates with that. Do not doubt your ability.
Yeah. Just as an aside, I suggested this book to read to one of my clients, and he now actually he comes into the session with the book and he enjoys reading me back parts of the bits that he found inspiring. And this was one of his, and he has the book in Italian. And I was just interesting again, guys, I like the language side of things as well. And the translation actually, where he says, you can look deep within yourself to the core of your being and decide that you don't want the weakest part of you running your life, the bit you just said, Greg. And in Italian, that running your life actually, if I translate it back into English, running your life, they translate it as dominating your life, which for me was even more impactful as I heard it. And woof, yes, because, running your life, somebody's running my life. Well, that's quite good then. That's kind of easy, isn't it? Somebody gets on with it and that's okay.
Yeah.
So it has a slightly different nuance. And when I heard it in Italian, thinking, don't want that. Dominating my life. What? Yeah.
That's cool how just the changing that one little word from running to dominating has so much more emphasis.
Yeah.
Does your client come in with this book like we do, where like virtually everything's highlighted?
Yeah. It's just amazing because we do these hour and a half sessions, and we have 3/4 of an hour when it, I just ask them, well, what's on the cards today, kind of thing. And then after after about 3/4 of an hour, he says, yeah, well, that's great. Well, let's just get back to the chapter. Okay, great. And he reads it through and then just reflects for himself on what his takeaways are and what he's done. He's actually read the whole book, and as we do the initial part of our session, something comes to mind that was in the book. So we go to whichever chapter it is that he then wants to reflect on, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Going back to Greg, what you were saying, like Michael's certainty that you can change and it is possible for you. Until you know that it is possible, everything we go about trying to protect ourselves, trying to protect the thorn, so to speak, there is an innocence to it.
Yes.
Like that drive is actually because we want to feel better, and who doesn't? We all do. So in the absence of that awareness of that, no, there is another way. We do the only thing we knew, the only thing we learned.
Yeah.
So just being kinder and gentle, to the ways that we all have been.
I mean, in that vein, like when I think back to all the things I've done in my life that align with his metaphor of, building apparatus and things, it's like, there's a heck of a lot of ingenuity and innovation and cleverness. And I mean, tapping the full range of my capacity for creativity and things in innocently not realizing, oh, I could just take this bloody thing out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so extraordinarily insightful, just how he explains all of this in just a few words. But it also speaks to me that what you're saying, Asanka, as again, Jamie Smart says, at your current level of understanding, how can we not, how can we change if we're not aware that there's a problem?
Yeah.
Especially as you were speaking, Asanka, to the thorn that you can't quite feel. It's one of those subcutaneous things that's been there for so long, you don't feel it anymore. You've just sort of got this bump on your skin and you scratch it from time to time. I know that's kind of annoying, but then you just carry on regardless, until you become aware of it.
Yeah. What occurs to me is that this is a bit of a left field perspective to the direction of this chapter. It's about thorns and, it's about how they're running, dominating our lives and we can get rid of them, etc. But what occurs to me is many people have these, thorns, wounds, trauma, etc. And Greg, you were talking about the ingenuity trying to protect yourself. It seems to me that there are these, not benefits, but when we have these thorns, it drives us to innovate and create. And there are these other things that we do that's actually sometimes has benefits. Not to say that, we need to keep our thorns to have benefits, etc. And what occurs to me is one of the Star Trek Picard episodes where they reveal that, his drive to save people and save worlds is coming from this trauma from not being able to save his mum from committing suicide. And that just drove the rest of his life until, universe brought him the full circle. Okay, now you have to face this, So we can't run away from it or avoid it or get rid of it, but I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but it's not that it's all just bad. The universe works in ways that we just don't seem to understand, Even these thorns seems to have a purpose in some ways. But it's also, the universe doesn't allow us to hold on to these thorns forever either. There's just some kind of elegance to it all.
There's definitely an elegance. I said, as I look back on my life, I can see how everything that's happened has brought me to this point.
It occurs to me, sorry.
Yeah, I'm
please.
not, it's changed my perspective on it. And I'm grateful for it. Even the hard parts now, because it brought me here and I like where I am now.
Yeah.
This is the best ever. And there's more to come.
If we all didn't have thorns, would we actually have pursued a path of being coaches in the first place? We were curious.
I like that at the end of him explaining kind of what's going on, he then asks the question, how do you free yourself? And then it goes on to explain, he says, in the deepest sense, you free yourself by finding yourself. You are not the pain you feel, nor are you the part that periodically stresses out. None of these disturbances have anything to do with you. You are the one who notices these things. To free yourself of your inner thorns, you simply stop playing with them. He goes on somewhere to say, like, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
Which I love is one of his lines.
Along there, Greg, he says, like, because your consciousness is separate and aware of these things, you can free yourself. And what occurred to me is when we get into doing, when we get into doing the letting go or doing the releasing it, then it becomes a battle too. Like now we got an agenda, we're resisting it being there. and it is the times where we actually stop and pause and really notice it and see it, we actually automatically become separate from it. It's like the awareness that was, or the consciousness that was identified with the problem or the thorn, etc. It just gently releases itself and becomes separate from the object, and it's just built into us to happen. But how often do I forget that?
Back to the innocence you were talking about.
Yeah. And he says that almost, he said this example previously shows that the thorn is always in your heart. It's just not activated until something touches it. That speaks to what you've just said, Asanka, to me. Yeah. And then also later on, again, we've just said, so what can you do to solve this besides eating something, calling somebody? He's talking of loneliness, drinking a bottle of whiskey, whatever, doing something else that might quiet it down. What you can do is notice that you've noticed. Yeah. And you can notice that your consciousness was watching TV. And now it is watching your inner melodrama. Spot on. Yes.
Listening to you reading that that bit of the book, what occurs to me is, Helene, the real power here is in the consciousness, and that's the quality of consciousness, the awareness, noticing, and then that takes me back the full circle where Michael was saying, like, you can change, like you can let it go, you have the power. Well, who you are, being the consciousness, well, here's proof that it can be done. It's not the ego, it's not you, the personality or the psychology. It's the you, that's the awareness or the consciousness.
Yeah.
And it feels a lot more plausible when I see it, that, oh yeah, when I'm in that space, it's so doable. But when I'm in my ego, wow, this is like a mountain to move,
Yeah.
Like most things that are very profound, it's all about the simplicity of it. Your way out is just notice who's noticing. It's really that simple. I've kind of, my rule of thumb is the simpler a solution is, the more probable it is that it's right. Like when you start getting into complex solutions, you're probably going down the wrong path. And he goes on to say, you can experience these very human states without getting lost in them or resisting them, which I've taken as being like, it's, all this humanness, it's okay. Like, you don't have to control it or avoid it or worry about it. Just don't get lost in it.
Yeah.
Just watch it. It's kind of, like Vanessa said, it's like, and almost the more human or crazy it is, the better show it is. It's like, just sit back and watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really requires a lot less effort, doesn't it? Like, even when you share, Greg, how you've been the years when what you call your picky eating, how much effort that has been to manage it, control it, set up everything around it, whatever. We all have those things, and it feels so effortful. Whereas what he's pointing to here and the noticing, just feels like, it's much less effort. There's much less doing required.
Yeah.
Yet when we think about creating solutions, we normally think they require so much doing, such complexity. And it doesn't seem like that's not what he's pointing to at all.
Mhm.
Yeah, this thought just dropped in my head sort of for decades, more than decades. People have been searching for the meaning of life. Well, this kind of points me to think that that's been the problem, because there is no meaning. Because the more we get tied up in a meaning, then the more we're back into our human beingness, rather than in the consciousness, the awareness of what it's all about. It's the actual trying to apply a meaning to something that makes it more complicated. Because as it seems to me that he's saying there is no meaning in all this unhappiness and awkwardness and difficulty.
Struggle.
There is none. It's struggle, yeah.
Mhm.
You could put the word identity in there as well.
Mm.
I know some of my biggest insights have been areas where I identified with an object and letting that go. You know, those have been realizing that I had attached my identity to a thing. And then as soon as I realize it, I can let it go, because that's not what I want. Yeah. Interesting.
It reminds me, I was in this program over the weekend, and we were actually exploring the whole identity dynamic in human beings. And what occurred to me was identities are formed when certain experiences come up, and then we hold on to those experiences. We don't let them go. And but the moment you're open to it and experience it, you let it go, the whole identity falls apart. And I love what you shared, Vanessa. It's like when you realize that you identified with it because of the expanded awareness and consciousness space that you're seeing, that it actually, you can just simply let it go without even needing to understand what's behind it or what's going on and so forth. Really simple.
It's occurring to me in this conversation too, like thinking about in my coaching practice, how much time I spend with clients helping them discover new apparatuses to not disturb their thorns versus pointing them in the direction of taking the thorn out.
Yeah. It's kind of like dissolving the thorn, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you're not even doing it.
This whole time too, I'm thinking of and I can't remember the exact metaphor, but it's a children's story of, I think it's a lion with a thorn in its paw or something, and a mouse helps take the thorn out. But and they become, fast friends because, this tiny little creature helped remove this thorn. But
these are all psychological thorns, aren't they? Meaning referring to the whole thought feeling connection.
Yeah.
I appreciate that the section where he talks about if you maintain your center, you can learn to appreciate and respect even the difficult experiences. And then he goes on to say, for example, some of the most beautiful poetry and music have come from people who were in turmoil. great art comes from the depths of one's being. And you can experience these very human states without getting lost in them or resisting them. I just love the part where he refers to how great works of art can come from that space. But if you're caught up and if you're completely lost in that space, that doesn't happen. Like there's a seed of awareness. There's a noticing that happened, and that allows that turmoil to be expressed in these beautiful pieces of work and art and that kind of thing.
Makes me wonder if the reason those poems or songs or whatever resonate with so many people is because of the connection we have to whatever it was that inspired those things.
Yeah.
We relate to it, not even knowingly, just kind of energetically.
It's got a kind of logical, practical thought, and how logical and practical for me this whole chapter is. I was just thinking, well, yeah, it makes sense that he doesn't offer a solution to like how to get rid of all the thorns sort of thing, or how to get rid of all your human experiences, because that would, of course, also automatically include experiences such as happiness and fun and laughter, and which, of course, we don't want to do, So I love the way it's just, simply put there, you don't actually have to get rid of it, you just notice it. And interestingly as well, how I'm wondering how much more we notice the painful experience. I don't know if that's true for everybody. I'm thinking it is in my case, maybe right or wrong, I don't know. But I guess if we try to make at least if I tried to make a list, I'm sure I could remember like the sore points more than I can remember the times that I've had, just those wonderful belly laughs with friends or whatever. I'm just wondering, but that's kind of an interesting thing as well. So, here's to noticing your experience rather than avoiding it and removing it. So.
And he points to what basically, if you can get into that noticing, he says, if you can do this, you will be free and a world of pure energy will open up within you. This flow has been called Shakti. This flow has been called spirit. This is what you begin to experience if you hang out with the self instead of hanging out in the inner disturbances. It's like basically what's on offer is this amazing existence in this energy. And I don't know, I'll speak for myself. I can imagine those times when I felt the most happy, joyful, full of love. That's probably where I was, even though I was probably attributing it at the time to a circumstance or something. But or maybe not. Maybe this is something I don't even know how good it is or what it is, because I haven't been there. But I love that that he's pointing to there's something incredible and amazing that's available to us if we can get there.
The image that comes to my mind is with these thorns or samskaras. It's like we built this dam for the life force to not be able to flow. And then we go through life trying to protect the dam from ever being taken away. There's something so beautiful as the life force coming through us until we see it, until we are ready to let it go. A lot of this seems to just comes down to, just that again, that innocence, but also just simply just not knowing and not being aware. And it's beautiful, like there are like books like this that actually really shine a light, going, oh hey, this is what's actually going on. It's almost like opening the bonnet and going, this is what's actually going on. And how much of an impact that just the awareness can have of this.
And it sounds to me like, Asanka, you've just kind of read the last part of the chapter. Once you learn that it's okay to feel inner disturbances and that they can no longer disturb your seat of consciousness, you will be free. You will begin to be sustained by the inner energy flow that comes from behind you. When you have tasted the ecstasy of the inner flow, you can walk in this world and the world will never touch you. That's how you become a free being. You transcend.
That might be a good place to leave it. Next week, we'll jump into chapter 10, Stealing Freedom for Your Soul. Which I guess would be the next step on that journey of transcendence.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, everyone.